Hello, I'm Cyrus Marcus Ware, and I am a PhD candidate in the Faculty of Environmental Studies at York University. My research is specifically about disability, race, and art, contemporary art spaces and institutions. I'm really interested in investigating and interrogating what Sarah Ahmed has us sort of think through this idea of institutional life and what happens when those of us who maybe experience life on the margins, take up space and engage with these kind of institutional environments. What I wanted to talk to you about today are two examples of ways that artists are creating work that is sometimes presented in the streets and sometimes presented in art institutions or nonprofit industrial complex institutions about HIV and AIDS and about AIDS activism. The two examples I wanted to talk about today I think are really significant, in part because they both sort of are at the beginning of this cusp of a renewed interest in artist multiples and art about AIDS, and also at this moment when we're seeing an uptake of disability arts practice in institutional spaces, increased funding. There's new funding through the Canada Council and Ontario Arts Council to make work specifically about disability, and also the development of policies like the AODA that specifically focuses on the way that we interact and access these kind of space-making environments. The two examples that I wanted to talk about today, one is AIDS Action Now and their poster virus series, and two is the artwork of Andrew MacPhail, who creates large-scale textile work about HIV, about AIDS, and about surviving. First of all, poster virus, AIDS Action Now, started in 1987 and has done direct action for the last 30 years. 30 years, a little bit more than 30 years. They've done important and groundbreaking work around making sure that we were able to have access to certain medications here in Canada, and of course, doing die-ins and doing message drops that really draw attention to relevant issues to 2016 that are so essential, like, for example, of course, their campaign around HIV criminalization and the amazing banner drop that they did at Pride this year, taking advantage of this moment when Black Lives Matter had stopped the parade, and they dropped the banner right over where the Premier and everybody was in the parade. Really, really brilliant activism. In 2011, they began something called Poster Virus, which is a poster series that sees the pairing of artists and HIV and AIDS activists and organizers to create new artworks specifically about a topic that is deep, complex, and intersectional in our understanding around HIV and AIDS in this moment. So in 2011 it began, and they've run it every year with usually 5, 6, or 7 artists each year creating new works. In 2012, I created a poster as part of the Poster Virus campaign in partnership with activists Tim McCaskill and Zoe Dodd, specifically around poverty and HIV and AIDS, thinking about this sort of paradoxical relationship wherein, of course, the experience of not having access to academic resources and other types of financial support, living on or below the poverty line or living on or near the streets, increases your chances of seroconverting and becoming HIV positive, and then paradoxically, of course, also being HIV positive increases your chances of living below the poverty line or losing access to economic resources, sometimes through lack of work opportunities and chances, sometimes through just the reality of what is ODSP, etc. So there was this sort of relationship that became almost like a cyclical relationship, an interrelated and interdependent relationship around money, access, and longevity. And so we created a poster that involved using an infinity symbol with small images of the penny, which of course was on its way out, and drawings of an HIV virus that sort of moves through this sort of double-sided relational understanding, with a message around the outside that said poverty plus AIDS equals death, which draws on the Silence Equals Death poster. Again, just thinking back to other artistic interventions that have done this important work. They've done really beautiful and complex posters through this poster virus series. It literally is treated as a sort of a contagion in the way that the dissemination process, they describe it as spreading the posters. The organizers describe it as spreading the posters. They put them up all throughout Ontario, but also throughout North America and beyond. You know, they were brought to the AIDS conference in Thailand, for example, and they get spread out through the city. As a virus, as a way of sort of manifesting this experience, this message, as sort of a spreading. Really, really interesting work, and you can check out more information at postervirus.tumblr.com. When you look at the way that they've brought these conversations and made them really complex, thinking about Mikey Key's poster, I party, I bareback, I'm responsible, for example, or Alison Mitchell's Fuck Positive Women, which could be read in a variety of different intonations and meanings depending on the reader. Again, really complicating our understanding of the messaging around HIV and AIDS. The second quick example that I want to discuss is the work of Andrew MacPhail, who has been creating large-scale textile works and whose work is currently on display at the Robert McLaughlin Gallery in Oshawa, wherein he has 3 pieces. One part of his This Is Not an AIDS Quilt series, where there's a white quilt that has a very elaborate sequined beading feature in the middle that's white on white that reads Ghost, really thinking through our understanding of memory and what it means to survive under a quilt, under a lover's quilt, but also in direct contrast with the AIDS quilt and the AIDS memorial quilt and what that sort of is symbolizing and manifesting. The other work that he has in the exhibition, there's a black wall with spray foam lettering in writ large that says, I feel fine. Something that really speaks to our understanding of what we are expected to feel and say and share as disabled people, but also what does it mean to have a sort of an apathetic, not an apathetic, but to have an effective response or understanding an effective experience of surviving, of living, and of being in this moment. And then the last work that he has in the exhibition is an intricate filigree, a very fine lace work that stretches all the way across the center part of the gallery and over a mannequin. Intricate, detailed lace work that when you get close, you realize is made up of an elaborate lacing of band-aids. The way that this sort of healing moment, this healing experience is made into something beautiful, this tenderness, the sort of healing intervention of the band-aid made into a beautiful filigree that covers the body of the mannequin in the center, but that also spreads out. It's something that we immediately want to be under, we want to feel, we want to touch. It's a very difficult piece to not touch in a gallery, which you're not supposed to touch things, and I just wanted to touch it, but I did not. But it's one of those ones that really draws you in. You can get more information about Andrew MacPhail's work by going to his website, Andrew MacPhail, MCPHAIL, and you can get more information there. These are 2 examples of art that is specifically complicating our understanding of the ways that artists can bring in disability justice into their work, healing justice into their work, and the way that they can kind of tie a conversation around HIV and AIDS to this current moment where we have such significant intersectional understandings and interlocking experiences of marginalization that affect our understanding and our experience of HIV and AIDS, of the work that we do in organizing around it, and also how we support people in our communities. So I'm going to turn it back over to the other panelists. This is just a hair introduction to 2 examples. I would encourage you to check them out online and also to check out Andrew's work at the Images in Our Head exhibition at the Robert McLaughlin Gallery, which is on until January of 2017. Many thanks.